to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And speaking of that, we have another raffle going on. We hit 2,000 plays, which is very exciting. And we want to give something back to our listeners, and in particular, one special listener. Here's what you need to do to enter to win. Head over to our Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Spotify Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. You can choose. And tag 3 friends in the post on Instagram. You get one entry if you do all of the above to win $50 towards women's sports gear of your choice. If you want a jersey, a shirt, a hat, a t-shirt, we'll give you $50 towards it. If you want more entries, you can get them by writing us a nice review on Apple Podcasts. You get 3 additional entries, so up to 4 entries total. And the raffle ends this Thursday, April 25th, and we will announce the winner this Friday, April 26th. Also, one more thing we wanted to mention before we get started. Thank you so much for listening to last week's episode on NARP Life and reaching out to us with your personal stories. We've had so many listeners reach out to us and share their personal stories on NARP Life. We are so thankful we get to connect with you all in the way that we do, and it's why we started this podcast. So thank you for listening and being vulnerable enough to share with us.
Yes, we love our listeners, and it's also nice to know we're not the only ones who went through that transition. So thanks for reaching out.
Okay, Big D, into the highlight reel for the week. What do you have for us?
So with basketball being over for now, I've been watching a lot of the lacrosse this past weekend. And the one game I want to highlight was number 2 Syracuse versus number 6 Boston College. Number 6 Boston College ended up winning this game 11-10 in overtime. And it was such an exciting game. Both teams went into this game with a record of 12 wins, 3 losses.
That's a matchup.
That is. So you can tell they're already evenly matched. Their rankings are not that far off. And right from the start, players were excited. I thought they were so excited that after each goal, they kept throwing their sticks on the ground. And I'm texting my sister and I'm like, oh my God, I'm watching Syracuse versus Boston College. I was texting Amanda, and Amanda and Carly both played lacrosse, Amanda more. And Amanda's like, well, they actually have to throw their stick on the ground after every goal so the ref can check their pocket depth.
Got it. So it's not like a bat flip in softball where you kind of toss your bat. They have to throw it on the ground.
Yeah. And I was like, after a while, I was like, wow, everyone's doing it. And that makes a lot of sense. Amanda was definitely teaching me things as I went and as I was texting her throughout this game. This game was back and forth the entire game. Everyone was fired up. Just to explain how back and forth it was, there were 8 ties throughout the duration of the game and 8 lead changes. So the rain was really coming down in the fourth quarter and pretty much the whole game, but I really noticed it in the fourth quarter and I was like, wow, that just looks very miserable and raw out, and these women were still just playing great. There were a lot of fans there. It was a neon out day and lots of little kids, boys and girls, both going nuts, families. It was really cool to see,
the rain?
Even in the rain.
That's the
cold,
most northeast thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah,
it's
they're
the reason
so used to it, it didn't even bother them.
It's the reason why I don't live there.
So Boston College was down 10-9 with 1:30 to go in the game, and Rachel Clark, who ended the game with a hat trick, she was a beast throughout this game, and a hat trick is scoring 3 goals. She scored to tie the game up with 1:27 left. Eventually, they head into overtime with the overtime sudden victory rules, 6-minute periods that consist of 3-minute halves, and after 3 minutes, teams switch sides, and each team gets 1 timeout. About halfway through the first 3 minutes, Natalie Smith from Syracuse was wide open and had a great shot on goal, but there was an unbelievable save made by sophomore goalie on Boston College, Shea Dolce. The way she got her stick up in the top corner to save the goal was unbelievable. They kept replaying it. I was just amazed. And then with 16 seconds left in the first half of overtime, Cassidy Weeks from Boston College scored to win the game, and she also ended with a hat trick. The defense was all over her and somehow she still managed to get the ball and score. The announcers were talking about how she's known for her game-winning goals, so it was definitely very cool to see that. A few things that I noticed throughout this game that I wanted to get your opinion on because I'm just curious. Most teams at the collegiate level, and I'm assuming still at the high school level, wear skirts instead of shorts. I personally just always question why that's necessary.
Would you ever wear a skirt to play a sport?
No, that would probably be a reason I wouldn't play that sport, which is why it upsets me so much.
It doesn't upset me in the same way. I think that players should have the option.
Fair.
If men wanted to go out and wear a skirt when they were playing, I would have no problem with it. Women should have the same option. If they want to play any sport wearing a skirt, I think that's fine as long as they're choosing to do so and aren't being forced to do it. And I think they should have the option to wear shorts or whatever it is comparable. The way they make skirts now is very different. They all have spandex underneath. They make them for performance. I think it's an option if that's what you want to do.
That's fair. And I asked my sister Amanda what her thoughts were because, as I said, she played and she actually said the skirts were comfortable and she liked playing in them. So I can appreciate having a choice for sure. Another thing, I was interested to see that a school as big as Boston College, those women were playing on the football field with all the football lines. To me, it's very confusing to see all those football
so
lines.
many lines.
And then you have like blue lacrosse lines painted over it that you could barely see. I don't know if they don't have the space, but just another thing that I noticed.
Yeah, real estate in Boston might be expensive.
Yeah, Boston.
The scariest part to me about lacrosse is how heavy and hard that ball is. I don't understand why it has to be like that. Why is it a death machine every time you pass the lacrosse ball?
I don't know, but these women are such good passers and catchers and shooters that it doesn't seem to bother them.
Yeah, I give them a lot of credit.
But with the speed that they can pass and shoot, one, I would not want to be the goalie. And two, on defense, would not want to get in the way without having my stick handy because that would hurt. I don't think I saw any drops that entire game, and they move the ball fast. They're also sprinting. I want to see lacrosse players and soccer players face off in some kind of long distance event.
You probably could. You could probably get their mileage now with all the data that we take of how much a lacrosse player is running and how much a soccer player is running.
I would go out on a limb to say lacrosse players might run more. I don't know.
I'm sure we have listeners who have done both sports and can probably tell us. And I'm sure you probably just created an online fight between the soccer players and the lacrosse players.
Their fitness is unbelievable. I will definitely be watching way more lacrosse in the coming weeks.
With your newfound love for lacrosse, are you going to be purchasing a lacrosse stick?
Ooh, my parents probably have my old one because in middle school when it became popular in New Jersey, I toyed with the idea of playing, but I liked softball too much. So I think they still have it somewhere.
But the sticks are different now, aren't they?
Yeah, but I'm not playing in any league, so it would be okay.
All right, let's stay in the Northeast. What else do you have for us?
Last week, the Boston Marathon was held, and just wanted to give a shout out to some of the top finishers. Helen O'Beary, for the second straight year, won the Boston Marathon with a time of 2 hours, 22 minutes, 37 seconds.
She's so good.
It's amazing. And she, like most runners, they just stay so steady throughout the race and then they find their time to kind of take off. And she ended up winning. Her husband and daughter again were at the finish line celebrating her win. Very, very cute.
And she trains in Boulder, correct?
Yes, that's what I heard. And I recently learned that.
Trying to get the altitude work in before heading to sea level, which is very cool.
Shout out to the top 3 U.S. women. Emma Bates is officially back. She got injured during the Chicago Marathon this past year and unfortunately had to miss the Olympic trials due to that injury. So this was her first marathon race back. She started out real hot. She was in the lead for a while. The announcers were saying she enjoys being in the lead for as long as she can. She ended up falling back eventually. She finished 12th overall, first American at 2 hours, 27 minutes, 14 seconds.
So just 5 minutes behind Helen O'Beary.
Yes. And then trickling in behind her, Sarah Hall, who was celebrating her 41st birthday, came in at 2 hours, 27 minutes, 58 seconds. And then you have Des Linden, who came in 16th place right after Sarah Hall's 15th at 2:28:27. Overall, the Boston Marathon is just such a cool race to watch on TV, and maybe one day I can even run it. We will see. That's
We're
a
trying
goal.
to plan all of these marathons, but doesn't it give you hope seeing Sarah Hall at 41 running? She has kids of her own.
Yes.
You can run marathons after you have kids.
Yes. And then just this morning, we are recording on Sunday. The London Marathon took place. Paris Jepchirchir broke the women's world record and finished in 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 16 seconds.
Wow.
So just wanted to give a huge shout out to her, especially as we're headed to Paris for the Olympics this year. The marathon's going to be a fun event to watch.
She is the reigning Olympic champion in the marathon. And with the victory, she is in a great spot to be selected by Athletics Kenya to defend her Olympic title in Paris. So not definite yet, but this puts her in a great spot in order for us to say Paris is heading to Paris.
I would hope you would choose the world record, the new world record holder to represent your country. So I'm sure we will see her there as long as she stays healthy. Next up, wanted to quickly chat about the WNBA draft that happened this past Monday. Who was the most surprising pick for you and whose outfit was your favorite?
Well, let me start with outfit because that's what I care most about. Rakia Jackson looked amazing. She had 2 looks, one red suit kind of dress look for the orange carpet. And then when it got to draft time, she changed into this silver suit with a silver bra underneath. It looked so good. Her hair looked so good. She had these amazing glasses on. It was giving her vibes. It was giving 90s Aaliyah vibes, but it was definitely just Rakia Jackson. She is so beautiful and just looked amazing.
Yeah, she definitely did. And you know, people are serious when they have an outfit change.
I love an outfit change. And then most surprising pick for me was definitely getting to see Kate Martin be selected for the draft.
I was really surprised by that. And especially that she's headed to the Aces, who won the championship last year.
Ooh, it's going to be hard to stay on that team.
Yeah.
Do you have best dress, best pick?
Sorry to all the players. My favorite outfit was actually one of the analysts, Andrea Carter.
Oh, yep,
with her lime green suit and the gems that had on it. She just looked great. So
say goodbye to me, everyone. Next week, it'll be Danielle and Andrea Carter leading Women's Sports Weekly.
All right. My most surprising moment was probably seeing Angel Reese getting drafted to Chicago Sky after they had already drafted Camila Cardoso. It's no secret that South Carolina and LSU had some tension this year, especially with the rivalry. So to see those two go to the same team will be very interesting and was interesting to me. And just the fact that they're both big forwards.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, if they keep them both or try to narrow it down to one, which is a scary thought. I also think about when I was playing sports, and if you ever played a team over and over again and you ended up hating them, there were always those people on the team that you hated and they were equal talent as you, but then you would see them or you would play with them in club and then just find out that
you become best friends.
Yeah, because you're both similar minded, want to win. So I have a feeling it's going to be like that.
They were both complimentary to each other when asked, and Angel said she's been playing Camilla since high school, and Camilla made a comment how nobody's going to get any rebounds on them. So
that's right.
That will definitely be fun to watch.
For my highlight for the week, I want to talk about NCAA women's gymnastic finals. LSU won its first NCAA gymnastics title last Saturday in front of 7,684 fans in Fort Worth, Texas. The finals had 4 teams: LSU, Utah, California, and Florida. In the semifinals, Oklahoma, the 2-time defending champion, the overwhelming favorite to win it all, was eliminated last Thursday. It was crazy. Oklahoma, this team has scored the highest team score ever recorded in NCAA history. And during the semifinals, they scored a season low. They had 5 really big faults. Oklahoma has won 5 of the past 7 national championships. It is Oklahoma's worst finish since 2012. It gave every other team a sense that I could win it. Mm-hmm. And when I was watching the finals, you could tell that in the first event, everyone was nervous. No matter what they were on, it was like a little bit shaky, some over rotations, some under rotations, just had to get the nerves out, but everyone settled in. LSU was behind Utah in the final event. In gymnastics, in the finals, they do 4 events. So they do beam, vault, floor, and uneven bars. So the 4 teams rotate through. LSU's last event was on beam. All of their scores get combined. They have 6 players do each event, and one of the scores is dropped. The lowest score is dropped. So senior Sierra Ballard opened the rotation with a career high 9.95, and then they just continued back-to-back clutch routine, and they set the record for a total event score of 49.7625, the highest ever on beam in NCAA championship history. They ate their Wheaties. They went out there and they were clutch. Another thing to mention is that the Tigers also have the all-around best gymnast. We've talked about her before, Haley Bryant. So she won all-around best gymnast. And in other gymnastics news, I also just want to point out that the U.S. Department of Justice will pay out a $100 million settlement to roughly 100 gymnast survivors of disgraced Dr. Larry Nassar after failing to take action for more than a year after learning of the now convicted sex abuser's actions. So a great weekend for women's gymnastics. Not only did LSU win, but long overdue and will not ever repair the damage of Larry Nassar, but $100 million to roughly 100 gymnasts. So wanted to point that out as well.
All right, Carolyn, let's get into the deep dive. There's been a lot of talk this past week about the pay structure and pay in general for the WNBA players. This definitely got kicked off because after Caitlin Clark got drafted, the number 1 seed to Indiana Fever, people have been wondering, how much is Caitlin Clark going to get paid as a rookie? All of a sudden, people are very interested in how underpaid the WNBA players are. So we looked into this a little bit and would love to share what we found with our listeners. So why don't you kick us off here?
Well, let's just say to start that Caitlin Clark's 4-year contract will pay her $76,535 during her first season. Her salary will increase over 4 years, and she will be paid $97,582 in her final year. That's only from the WNBA. That does not include her endorsements. She's about to sign a huge deal with Nike.
Reportedly over $20 million, which is amazing.
It is amazing. And we need to talk about this pay gap and this pay structure in the WNBA. By comparison, Victor Wembanyama, the number 1 overall pick in last year's NBA draft, signed a 4-year, $55 million contract. He will make $12.1 million in his first season compared to $76,000 in Caitlin Clark's first season. So a really big
Huge difference.
Let's go through the facts because there are some reasons for the pay disparity. So let's go through some of the contributing factors. The NBA generates more money than the WNBA. Very simply. The WNBA is set to bring in $200 million in both team and league revenue compared to the NBA's $10 billion. So a difference between $1 million and $1 billion, $200 million compared to $10 billion. $200 million is comparable to what the NBA brought in the 1970s. And I say that because the NBA was founded in 1946.
Sure.
The WNBA was founded in 1996.
Not that long ago.
There is a 50-year difference here. The NBA is 78 years old, while the WNBA is 28 years old. So when there's all this talk about how the WNBA brings in no money, if we were to go back in time and they were to start at the same time, we would be talking similar numbers. We probably wouldn't because the times were different. But if we're thinking about it in numbers, they would be similar.
And Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, was recently just interviewed about this. And she said that point exactly. She's like, the WNBA is only 28 years old. If you were to look at numbers where we're at right now and compare them to the NBA at 28 years, we probably are doing better than they were at this time. So, and she said, we have a lot of work to do and we're making progress.
I understand why no one's happy with the progress.
Oh, no,
because
I'm not
it's
happy.
So big, right? The WNBA's television rights deal is also very different than the NBA's. So right now, that WNBA TV rights deal is worth $65 million versus the NBA's $2.8 billion contract. However, the WNBA's television right deal expires after the 2025 season. So there is anticipation that if there's a sustained uptick in viewership, which we hope to see, that this could be used as a way to get more money for that deal.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. Just Indiana Fever alone is now going to have over 30 games televised nationally, and that's only going to help with the viewership.
That's exactly right. And I want to get into more of accessibility in a bit, but let's continue with the facts. So the NBA players get about a 50-50 split of basketball related revenue. So think broadcast money, jersey sales. They split that with the owners in the league. I then had to do some research because I'm like, what the heck is revenue? What the heck is profit? I know none of these terms. We are not experts about this. Revenue is the total amount of income generated by the sale of goods and services related to the company's primary operations. Profit is your bottom line. It is the amount of income that remains after accounting for all your expenses, all your debts, your additional income streams, operating costs. In the NBA players get a 50-50 split of revenue only, not profit, revenue only. The collective bargaining agreement, which is the agreement that's set between the players' union and the WNBA league, allows for revenue sharing only if certain revenue thresholds are met. And so far, those thresholds have not been met in order for the players to get some revenue shares. So there is a big difference. And then that revenue share is not 50-50. It's more like 80-20 in the league's favor. When we're talking about pay equity, and you'll notice that I'm not saying pay equality.
Equality, yep.
The players in the WNBA, Kelsey Plum has said this a million times, are not looking for equal pay. They're looking for pay equity, meaning we get the same share of the money that we make as the NBA players do.
So just to clarify, what someone like Kelsey Plum is saying is the men have 50-50 based on what they're producing and they get that revenue. So why don't the women get 50-50 of the revenue they themselves are producing? That's what equity is, correct?
Correct. The next thing that I want to get into is we'll hear a lot of people say the NBA funds the WNBA. A part of that is true, but let's dive into that. So some owners of NBA teams are also part owners of the WNBA teams. So if you think about this new Golden State team that's coming out, they'll be the 6th WNBA team under NBA ownership. Sure. So they're coming out of Golden State, the Golden State Warriors, and they're creating a Golden State WNBA team. We don't have a name for it yet. However, if there's a Portland team, there's been this proposed Portland team, they would be independently owned. Las Vegas Aces are independently owned. They don't have an NBA counterpart. So it's not everyone, but the NBA controls more than 40% of the women's league. I do want to point something out. Ownership is very important, and it's not who owns you, it's how they own you. The Las Vegas Aces have done great without their NBA counterpart.
Sure.
The New York Liberty have also done great with their NBA counterpart. Yeah. However, the Liberty had a previous owner who pretty much just drove the Liberty into the ground, even though they were a good team. He moved them to play in White Plains. He just didn't give a shit and then ran them into the ground. And now they have new owners who care about both the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Liberty. And we've seen the difference. And here are some stats. In 2023, the Liberty saw more than 100% growth in overall ticket sales, 200+% increase in season ticket membership, and seated 2,500 more fans per game at the Barclays Center compared to 2022. Ownership matters. It's not who owns you, it's how they own you. And this is when I think about pay structure, I'm not just talking about the individuals, I'm talking about the entire structure. And this is where I think we can make some really positive changes, because when you have 100% growth, when you have 200+ increase in season ticket memberships, you are going to generate money in the future. But if your owner doesn't care, you're not going to generate money. Are we giving WNBA players equal training facilities, equal travel accommodations, equal revenue sharing, equal publicity and promotion? No.
Yep.
It's very simple. How does anyone expect anything to change when all of those questions are not yes? We see what happened in March Madness. NCAA Title IX ensures that women and men's sports receive equal facilities, receive the same kind of training. And we saw when March Madness branding was brought
just 2 years ago
to the women's tournament that it exploded.
Yes.
I don't know why people don't focus on that. It drives me crazy a little bit when the publicity and the promotion is not the same. You're not going to get the same viewership.
Correct. If I have to dig around to look for a game and not know where it's readily available, and I'm not a super fan, I might not be willing to do that extra work. Even when you are a super fan, trying to find some games is frustrating. The connectivity is not as good. So when we talk about viewership, it's like this past women's Final Four, the national championship game brought in over 18 million viewers, which was more than the men's national championship game. If it is available, to your point, the data shows that people are watching. So people can no longer use the excuse that nobody watches women's sports. It's in the data. And if you're not paying attention to the data, I don't know what else to do. But I think we're starting to see that shift. And I think it's still going to take time, which is going to be frustrating.
And when I talk about structure, I want to point out some things. It's easy to point to the players or the fans and say that they should be doing more. The players should be more exciting. They should dunk. Or the fans, especially us women, should be watching more. That is so last level thinking where we need to move up more. The structure plays less women's games, right? The structure we have in place right now plays less WNBA games. So plays less games in general.
Yep.
Makes it more difficult to watch. The structure didn't have the women's college Final Four in prime time, even though it was doing better than the men's. And they knew that. And they still didn't put it in prime time. That's a structural issue. The structure that is in place has always paid women less. Always, regardless if they're in the WNBA, than their male counterparts doing the exact same job. I'm talking beyond the WNBA. The structure that is in place has less women participating in sports. We can't just say it's a women problem that we need to be watching more. We need to be doing more. We can't just say it's a fan problem. This is a structural issue. So we can all have the same dumb fight about comparing men to women, or we could actually go upstream and make sure that the structures in place promote pay equity. So then let's talk about this collective bargaining agreement, because after this year, WNBA players can opt out of this collective bargaining agreement, even though it runs through 2027. If the WNBA has a really good year this year, in terms of viewership and things like that, we can expect that collective bargaining agreement is going to be, there's going to be some major changes that are going to help with the pay equity.
It's good to hear that, even though it runs through 2027, that they're willing to make changes ahead of that. So that's really positive.
There's always this friction between the league and the Players Association. This happens in the NBA as well. There's a friction between the league and the players. Everybody wants more money. Everyone wants to keep the money.
And the players have to be fighting for their rights, or they'll never get anything. So that makes sense. There's going to be continued friction. WNBA
Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has done a lot in the previous CBA that wasn't there, and have done things like increasing playoff bonuses by over 50%, providing $4 million budgeted charter flights for the playoffs, only for the playoffs.
I know.
And creating the Commissioner Cup championship game, which is...
And that brings on added bonuses, because the team who wins will get some money. So it is nice to see that they're doing that. But again, we're fighting for more money. They have to win that cup to win that money. They have to be in the playoffs to benefit from charter planes. So I'm hoping we can get to the point where it doesn't need to be just a playoff thing. It can be a season thing, that they get their planes chartered.
And so all of these things that are kind of up in the air, the CBA, the deal with the broadcast deals, things like that, it's all going to take several years because all those contracts end at different times. But I think we're in a unique position right now. If you make women's sports accessible, people watch. The more you watch, the more likely you are going to be to support a team. Once you support a team, then you're going to buy tickets to go see that team in person.
Yep.
We cannot say it's a fan issue. We cannot say it's a women's issue. This is a structural issue starting at the top that we need to make some changes. That change is going to take longer than we want, but let's not have the fight and debate at the lower level of men versus women fans versus men fans. It is bigger than that.
Yeah, and I think the college season showed that this year. The fans can only do so much, to your point.
Yes.
The structure needs to change.
And we do have a role as fans, right? We need to continue promoting. We need to continue attending. If you're in a friend group and you're looking around and seeing nobody watches women's sports here, and I do, and I find it very passionate, find some new friends. Like, go on a meetup. In Denver, we have the WNBA Club Denver meetup. We don't even have a WNBA team. You can meet like-minded people. Don't fall into the trap, the story that nobody watches, because it's so not true and it's so not the issue.
And call your friends in. There's so many people around us who I feel like have been watching more because of how excited we get and how excited they see other people get. So call people in, invite them to watch a game with you. Guaranteed they'll get sucked in pretty quickly.
And then advocate for the structural changes, right? Those are where we're going to see the pay actually come through.
There's an ant in your bangs.
Ew, how did it get there? Ugh. New bangs, new ants.
Ew.
We're going to continue to learn more about it as well. We don't know everything. We're going to learn about this and continue to share this news with you as it comes along.
Yeah, but thanks for sharing all that. I definitely learned a lot today and excited to see what happens moving forward.
Let's wrap up today. What are you looking forward to this week, Dee?
As mentioned, been on a lacrosse kick lately, and there's a lot of good lacrosse games this week. So we are coming close to the end of the regular season for women's NCAA lacrosse Division I, and conference tournaments are approaching. There's a lot of good games happening on Wednesday, April 24th and Saturday, April 27th. The one game I'm looking forward to watching is on Wednesday, April 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern on the ACC network is number 6 Virginia playing number 15 UNC. So what are you looking forward to in the coming week?
I want to talk about the NWSL. Orlando Pride plays at Washington Spirit, 7:30 p.m. on Friday, April 26th on NWSL Plus. NWSL Plus is free. You just download the NWSL app. Marta plays for the Orlando Pride, and they have this new player, Barbara Banda, a Zambian forward. She played in her first game this last Friday, and oh my gosh, is she a spark plug.
As soon as she got in the game, I was like, holy shit, she's about to score. And she just took off. She's so fast, so much energy, and has a knack for the ball.
Orlando Pride signed her on a historic deal from the Chinese Women's Super League. She joins the Pride following a $740,000 transfer fee and was signed to a 4-year contract through the 2027 season. I cannot wait to see what she does. She didn't end up scoring in the game on Friday, but she's playing Washington Spirit this Friday. I'm excited to see what happens. Also wanted to point out that the Kansas City Current play at Angel City on Friday, April 26th at 10 p.m. Eastern time on Amazon Prime. And on Sunday, April 28th, Racing Louisville plays at Gotham, 5 p.m. Eastern time on NWSL Plus. The reason why I wanted to mention 3 games was because the Orlando Pride, the Kansas City Current, and Racing Louisville are all unbeaten through the first 5 games of the season. So these are the games you want to watch. These teams are on fire.
So that's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.
And don't forget to register for our raffle by Thursday, April 25th.